I've known you too long. I've seen you burp, barf, pick your nose, scratch your butt. I don't think I'm getting a thing for you.
If you grew up anywhere near the late 90s teen TV boom, Dawson's Creek probably lives in your brain rent-free. Small-town sunsets, giant feelings, and dialogue that somehow sounded like a philosophy major fighting for their life in an English class. It premiered on the WB on January 20th, 1998, and almost instantly became the show that other teen dramas had to react to. But here's the fun part. Behind the moody docs and love triangles, the show had a behind-the-scenes story that's just as dramatic as anything in Capeside. Marketing stunts that treated a TV show like a summer blockbuster. A sponsor that bailed before the premiere. An early version of online fandom that was basically a prototype for the way shows do engagement now. And yes, we're going to talk about the cry face that launched 1,000 memes. So let's do it. 15 weird facts about Dawson's Creek, counting down to the one decision that still feels wild in hindsight. And if you're into these throwback deep dives, hit like, subscribe, and let's jump into Capeside. 15. The cast showed up in a J. Crew catalog before they were famous. Before Dawson's Creek was a cultural reference point, the WB was already positioning it like a whole vibe. And one of the strangest flexes is that J. Crew, the show's wardrobe provider, featured the then unknown cast in a winter-spring catalog. Which is such a perfect time capsule because it explains why the show's casual fashion still looks suspiciously curated. It wasn't just teenagers wearing clothes. It was teenagers wearing aspirational, mall-adjacent East Coast preppy core. The kind of stuff that made Capeside feel like a place where everyone owned 3 cable-knit sweaters and had strong opinions about denim washes. And honestly, that early brand synergy is kind of hilarious because the show is remembered as this messy emotional soap. But it was also being packaged like a lifestyle product from day one. You weren't just watching Dawson and Joey argue. You were basically being sold the idea that your high school heartbreak should come with good lighting and a clean, catalog-ready outfit. 14. The WB promoted it in movie theaters like it was a blockbuster. This one still feels unreal. The WB ran Dawson's Creek trailers in movie theaters, which at the time was a major wait, networks can do that moment. Weekly later described how the network leaned into full-on movie marketing, including standees designed to look like real film posters, with credits font styling, and all the tricks you'd see in theatrical advertising. And it worked because Dawson's Creek didn't just launch as a new show, it launched as an event. That's why even people who didn't watch it knew what it was. The marketing created this sense that you were about to witness the teen show, not just a teen show. It also perfectly matches Dawson's whole identity. The kid who thinks in movies, frames his life like a screenplay, and treats every conversation like it's competing for an Oscar. The WB basically went, cool, let's market the series like Dawson would. 13. A major corporate partner bailed before the show even premiered. Here's a weird one with real consequences. Procter & Gamble withdrew from its role as a production partner, equity partner, after reviewing episodes, months before the show debuted. That tells you 2 things right away. First, the show had controversy swirling around it early, not after it became famous, but while it was still loading in. Second, it's a reminder that Dawson's Creek wasn't just edgy in the teens talk like adults way. It was edgy enough that a gigantic consumer brand looked at it and said, yeah, we're good. And the wild part is, that kind of pre-premiere tension can either sink a series or supercharge the curiosity around it. In this case, it helped the show arrive with a reputation before most people had even seen an episode. Capeside wasn't even on the map yet, and the headlines were already acting like it was the most scandalous doc in America. 12. The teacher storyline was part of the early buzz, and it aged like milk. The WB's early promo push generated talk specifically because the show was willing to go there. Frank teen sexual talk and a teacher-student romantic plotline were already being discussed before the premiere. And years later, that same storyline is the one people point at and go, how did this get written like that? In 2025, Busy Phillips flat out called the Pacey teacher plot insanely inappropriate, basically framing it as an example of how much culture has shifted since the late 90s. So it's weird in a very specific way. Dawson's Creek is remembered as progressive in a lot of areas, but it also contains some "what were we thinking?" choices that were treated way more casually at the time. It's a time capsule of a moment when teen TV was pushing boundaries, but not always with the clarity we'd want now. And that contrast is basically the show in a nutshell: groundbreaking and occasionally baffling. 11. It got slammed by watchdogs and praised by major advocacy groups. This is one of those two things can be true weird facts. On one hand, Dawson's Creek drew backlash. Groups like the Parents Television Council publicly attacked it, in part over its open references to condoms, pornography, and LGBTQ acceptance. On the other hand, the show also earned genuine recognition. It appears in the GLAAD Media Award list for Outstanding Drama Series, 2000, a signal that, whatever else the series was doing, it mattered in the broader cultural conversation about representation. So you get this funny tension where Dawson's Creek was simultaneously too much for some people and important for others, which honestly is usually the sign that a show is hitting real nerves instead of playing it safe. It wasn't just teens crying on docks. It was a network teen drama stepping into topics that older, more serious shows often avoided, and taking heat for it. That backlash jock praise split is basically the DNA of influential TV. 10. The entire first season was filmed before the first episode aired. Most shows adjust on the fly after audience reaction. Dawson's Creek? Not at first. Wikipedia notes the entire first season, 13 episodes, was filmed before the first episode even aired. That's wild, because it means the show's early tone, its pacing, its character vibes, even how bold it was locked in without live feedback. It also helps explain why Season 1 has such a distinct, sealed capsule feeling. Everything is intensely committed. The writing is super specific. The characters talk like they're trying to win a verbal chess tournament, and the show doesn't feel like it's hedging. When you can't course correct based on fan reaction, you're forced to plant your flag and go, "This is the show." And they did. It's one of those behind-the-scenes realities that makes the early seasons even more impressive, because the writers and cast weren't getting weekly validation. They were building an entire world on faith that audiences would show up later. And then they did. 9. Capeside is basically Wilmington, North Carolina, with real houses and real landmarks. Capeside looks like coastal Massachusetts, but the show was primarily filmed in Wilmington, North Carolina, with nearby spots like Southport and Wrightsville Beach filling in for that Cape Cod feel. Wikipedia and the details get oddly specific. The Leary, Lindley, and Potter homes were private residences along Hewlett's Creek, and Capeside High exteriors used buildings on the UNC Wilmington campus. The coolest part? The show boosted local tourism so much that the Visitors Bureau distributed a guide to filming locations. So when people say, "I want to visit Capeside," they're not totally kidding, because you can basically do a real-world scavenger hunt through Wilmington and spot pieces of the show's geography. It's also why the series feels grounded, even when the emotions go full soap opera. The setting isn't a backlot fantasy town. It's real streets, real water, real light. That authenticity is doing a lot of heavy lifting when teenagers are delivering lines that sound like they've read 3 books about destiny. 8. The show literally wrote a real location out by burning it down. This one is peak TV production problems become plot. The Potter family's Ice House restaurant interiors were filmed at the Ice House bar in downtown Wilmington, but later nearby construction caused problems, so the producers eliminated the bar from the storyline by burning it down. That's such a soap opera solution to a logistical issue. Like, imagine being a writer and getting the memo, "Hey, we can't use this location anymore." And someone in the room goes, "Cool, let's set it on fire." It's also a reminder that a lot of the show's big drama moments are sometimes production math scheduling, location access, budget, renovations. Those practical realities can force story turns that audiences assume were always part of the grand plan. And because Dawson's Creek is already a show where feelings are enormous, the line between creative choice and we had to gets blurry. Burning down a beloved spot isn't just convenient. It also creates a symbolic rupture, a sense of endings and change, which for this show is basically Tuesday. 7. Dawson's desktop was early transmedia. Before that was normal. Long before social media became the default way fans hang out with a show, Dawson's Creek experimented with something ahead of its time. The official site, Dawson's Desktop, where fans could explore character files, emails, chats, basically a whole digital extension of the story world. And it wasn't just bonus fluff. The Los Angeles Times described how the online postings would give fans inside info and even affect story arcs heading into the next season. That's insane for 1999. Today, every show wants engagement. TikTok clips, behind-the-scenes drops, interactive accounts. But back then, this was genuinely experimental. It's like the series accidentally predicted the future of fandom. Let's make the audience feel like they can live in the show between episodes. Which also fits Dawson as a character. He's obsessed with media, storytelling, and the experience. So the show didn't just tell a story about a kid who loves screens. It built an early digital sandbox for viewers to keep the story alive. 6. The show's music choices were practically a superpower. People remember Dawson's Creek for the dialogue, sure, but the music was a huge part of the identity. The show curated popular and alternative tracks so strongly that it helped shape how teen dramas used music in the late 90s, early 2000s. The team treated songs as emotional storytelling tools, sometimes testing a bunch of tracks against a single scene to find the right feeling. And it didn't stop at the episodes. The soundtrack releases became a real thing. Songs from Dawson's Creek was a major success internationally, with big sales and chart performance. This is one of those quiet influence facts. Dawson's Creek helped normalize the idea that a teen drama could also be a music discovery machine. You watch an episode, you hear a song, and suddenly your whole mood for the next month is staring out a car window pretending you're in a montage. So yeah, the show didn't just give people ships. It gave people playlists before playlists were even the way we organized our lives. 5. The streaming DVD versions changed a ton of music until the theme song came back. Here's the pain. Every nostalgia fan knows. Older shows often didn't secure streaming rights for music back when they were produced, because streaming wasn't the plan yet. In Dawson's Creek's case, Wikipedia notes that many original broadcast songs were replaced on DVDs and streaming releases due to rights issues. Even the theme song got messy. On DVDs, I Don't Want to Wait was dropped and replaced, including with Jan Arden in some releases. Then, in 2021, the universe healed a little. Netflix restored Paula Cole's theme by using a newer master, and Deadline reported the song was returned to the show on the platform. It's weird that a theme song can become a whole saga, but that's how iconic it is. For a lot of viewers, if that opening doesn't hit exactly right, it doesn't feel like Capeside. So, watching the theme song fight its way back onto streaming is one of the most Dawson's Creek meta-stories imaginable. 4. The casting what-ifs are kind of incredible. Casting stories always feel like alternate universes, and Dawson's Creek has some good ones. Wikipedia notes the team was initially close to casting Selma Blair for Joey before Katie Holmes' audition tape arrived, shot at home with her mom reading Dawson's lines. And then there's the Jen role. Entertainment Weekly's reunion coverage brought up that Katherine Heigl auditioned for Jen, and Kevin Williamson remembered being impressed. She just read more mature at the time. That's a genuinely fascinating slide doors moment, because Jen isn't just a character, she's the emotional temperature of the early seasons. Swap the casting, and you potentially change the whole chemistry of the group. It also highlights how close the show came to being slightly different, but still recognizable. Because the final cast that emerged, Beek, Holmes, Jackson Williams, became the definitive faces of the WB teen era. And it's strange to think that one audition tape, one "she feels older," one scheduling conflict, could have rewritten the entire mood of Capeside. 3. Michelle Williams' on-set Grams became a real mentor. This one is sweet in the middle of all the chaos. Michelle Williams has talked about how Mary Beth Peel, who played Jen's grandmother, Grams, took her under her wing during the show. In a People.com piece, Williams described being young and essentially on her own, and said Peel filled a stabilizing role for her, someone who made it feel possible to be serious about the craft. It's a great behind-the-scenes contrast, because on screen, the teen world is turbulent and dramatic, but off-screen, you've got this older actor quietly providing grounding and care, basically mirroring what Grams represents in the story. And it's especially meaningful because Dawson's Creek was a launching pad. A lot of young actors do these massive shows, and then spend years trying to find their footing afterward. Hearing that Williams had a mentor figure during the ride helps explain how she could treat the work seriously, even in a teen drama environment. So yeah, Capeside wasn't just a fictional coming-of-age story. For at least one cast member, it was literally that. 2. The crying Dawson face became a meme, and Beek embraced it. You can love Dawson's Creek with your whole heart, and still admit this. The cry face is immortal. The scene of Dawson's crying face became a meme that James Beek has acknowledged. Wikipedia and People even ran a piece about him loving the fact that the ugly cry turned into an internet legend, basically accepting that, for some corners of pop culture, that might be the show's most famous screenshot. It's weirdly perfect though, because Dawson's Creek is a show where emotions are never subtle. Nobody shrugs. Nobody says, "It's fine." Everyone is living like their feelings are the season finale. So when meme culture grabbed a single frame and turned it into shorthand for dramatic despair, it wasn't random. It was the internet discovering the most concentrated form of Capeside energy possible. And Beek leaning into it is the best possible outcome. Because if you're going to be remembered for something forever, being remembered for a moment of unfiltered emotion from the teen drama era is kind of iconic. 1. The show basically had 2 different finales. This is my favorite, how does that even happen? Fact. Vanity Fair's deep dive on the writer's room explains that Dawson's Creek ended up with what amounts to 2 finales. One version written by staff writers, with its own conclusions. And then, the network asked creator Kevin Williamson to return and write his own finale, set 5 years in the future, leading to the ending most people remember. That is wild from a TV production standpoint. It's like a band playing a farewell show, and then coming back out to play a different farewell show because the audience wanted another last song. It also explains why the ending has that mythic wrap-up quality. When you jump forward, you're not just ending a story, you're delivering a verdict on everyone's future. Who ended up together? Who grew up? Who healed? Who didn't? And it's the most Dawson's Creek way to end imaginable. The show couldn't just say goodbye once. It had to say goodbye, reflect on the goodbye, and then say goodbye again, but with a time jump and extra destiny. Conclusion. That's the magic of Dawson's Creek. It's not just the episodes, it's the whole ecosystem around it. A teen drama that got marketed like a movie. A show that flirted with early internet fandom before most series knew what that meant. A soundtrack era that shaped how teen TV sounded for years. And a finale so important, they basically said, let's do it twice. It also explains why the show still gets discussed the way it does. Some of it holds up beautifully. Some of it makes you squint and go, we really let that slide in 1998, huh? But all of it feels like a key artifact from the moment teen TV realized it could be bigger, smarter, riskier, and way more culturally loud than anyone expected. Now I want to hear from you. What's the weirdest Dawson's Creek detail you remember? Something you'd only know if you watched it live, rewatched it obsessively, or fell into the internet rabbit hole. drop it in the comments. And if you want, I can do a part 2 with deeper cuts. Guest stars, music swaps, network notes, the whole thing.